So hello everyone and welcome to a Valorant tips and tricks video. Today we're going to be looking at Sage and particularly Sage on Split, but what I'm going to tell you in this video can apply to pretty much all the maps when using Sage, and we're going to look at Sage defensively because, as I'm sure most of you know, Sage is a pretty popular character to pick in ranked games, and she's quite easy and flexible to use in a lot of variety of situations, and normally you'll get good use out of her kit. And so I thought I would talk about Sage and how we might best utilize her on Split and how you can therefore go forward and use her as well on other maps. So one thing that oftentimes will happen on Split is Sage will use a barrier up mid to either start the round or very early into the round. You will get this barrier here, this wall, by a Sage in mid, and the idea of course is to stop any early aggression pushing up mid from your opponent, so there will be none of, just straight running up mid here. You won't lose control of mid early on. You'll be able to, put this barrier up, which will slow them down quite a lot early on. Now, whilst there is nothing wrong with this wall, and it is definitely a wall that you can use, particularly if your opponents are being aggressive in the mid area and are getting control of mid very early on, it actually is probably correct to use your wall in that instance. But I don't think that it's the best wall that you can do most of the time on Split. My reason for this is that, generally speaking, opponents won't tend to be super aggressive into mid because they'll often be expecting a fight around mid for early mid control. Very rarely will opponents be able to just waltz up mid and take control of it straight away. And so what tends to happen instead is that you will get, if we just put in a couple of attackers here, there'll be a couple of attackers around here who will just see the wall and start destroying it. And it might waste 20 seconds, 10 seconds, however long it may be, of their time to destroy the wall. But generally, that will be the wall's purpose pretty much done. And I don't think that that is an effective use of what is probably Sage's best bit of utility. So instead of using the Sage wall up mid, let's take a look at this game between Crew and Sentinels on the map Split from the recent Valorant Champions tournament. And we can see what Sick here, who is playing Sage, as you can see, we can see where he puts his wall. So as we can see, the round is about to start and we've got Sick here, and he is going to instantly straight away, this is on a pistol round, but he's instantly straight away going to put up the wall just here. You can just about see it there with its blue little outline just there across a main here. And let's go back to the map and understand why this wall might be more effective. So as mentioned, instead of the wall up mid, instead we get this wall here on A main. And what is this wall doing that perhaps the one over here in mid isn't? Why might this be a better option for our Sage wall? Well, of course, it's still doing a similar thing, still doing its main role, which is blocking off entrance here to A. But this has multiple purposes, really. Obviously, it is just blocking off any quick aggression to A, and obviously on a pistol round in particular, you're perhaps more likely to get stacks of attackers going to one site, as they try and just overwhelm the one player with a pistol. That's normally what is more likely to happen on pistol rounds. So it's stopping any aggression on A main, but it's also doing a couple other things. One is, of course, that the ultimate orb on Split is right here. And particularly on a pistol round, but on other rounds as well, if there aren't a lot of players grouped up outside A main, then of course this wall will probably stay up long enough for you as the Sage or anyone else who is playing alongside you to be able to get this ultimate orb for free as the wall protects you. That's a great thing. But then crucially, what else this wall is doing is giving the team information. And this is the big difference, I think, between this wall here on A and the wall in mid. Because what generally is going to happen on Split is if you put this wall in mid, there will almost always be someone in mid on Split, because generally there's only 3 ways for the attackers to go. You can start here, you can start in mid, or you can start on A, right? There's 3 places for them to go. And so often what will happen, because mid is sort of the gateway to both sides, is that you will get most of the time someone, at least one attacker. Most of the time it will be more than one as well, though. Someone will be in mid. And so you don't really ever gain much information from this wall. Now, sometimes, very rarely, you will get information because no one will shoot it down, and that means that no one might be in mid, and that might tell you if, you hit contact on another site, that it actually is just a full 5 stack on that site. So it can very rarely give you information. However, that's quite rare, particularly the higher up the ranks you go. And so this Sage wall on mid generally won't give you that much information because you'll just get 1 or 2 players coming here in mid and shooting it down. And guess what? There'll be someone in mid almost every round of the game. Whereas this wall on A, if your opponents go for a B split, which they often will, and they will probably quite a few different times of the game, and no one is on A, or maybe one person is on A, This wall is going to stay up there and mean that, your opponents aren't going to be able to cross, they aren't going to be able to get past this point of A, which is going to give you a lot of control of obviously all of this space here, and probably all the way up into vents as well, as long as someone is in vents, one of your teammates. And so you're going to get a lot of control of the map from this one Sage wall, whereas the one in mid often is just going to get destroyed very early on in the round, and you aren't going to be able to gain that control of the map. Now, you do still have to be careful with this wall, of course, because you don't actually know that there's no one outside. They could just wait for the Sage wall to go down, which, if like you did with Sick, put it up straight away, the wall will go down with plenty of time to spare for the attackers to still execute an attack after the Sage wall is gone. So you can't just leave the site completely. You can't just go, oh, I've put up the wall, no one shut it, they must be B, let's go. You can't do that straight away. Obviously, if you hear a lot of contact on B and your teammates are calling that, then maybe, yes, you can go. But of course, your opponents could just be waiting for the wall to drop. They could be, cutting any noise. But again, if none of your teammates are hearing anything at all as well, that probably can lead you to be a bit suspicious and be thinking maybe they are just behind the wall. So again, it's basically just going off what your teammates are telling you will be able to determine how you're going to play after you've put up this Sage wall. And if two of you are playing on A as well, then it's, likely that perhaps one of you can then go off and either support in mid or go out and help and support with B. So that's why I believe that this Sage wall on A will generally be a better wall for you. It gives you orb control, it gives you a lot of space on the map if it doesn't get destroyed. If obviously there is a lot of destruction of the wall quickly, then you'll know it's probably an A push and you would have slowed that down either way. And if no one destroys it, then you get that information that there probably isn't too many people on A and that you can go off and perhaps help support in other areas. So that was just a quick video explaining about Sage walls. Stay tuned for more, where we'll talk about plenty of other agents and plenty other utility usage learning from the pros so that you can start ranking up in Valorant.